Hello.
It's possible that we'll have a couple other people join us shortly, but we'll go ahead and get started. Aiden, are you ready? All right, great. Welcome to the August 20th meeting of the Westborough Town's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A-18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public or by parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at www.town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by watching live on YouTube/Westborough TV, on Verizon Channel 28 or Channel 1 or Charter Channel 192, or you may watch a recorded version on the website for westboroughTV.org under Meetings on Demand. No in-person attendance of meetings of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Thank you for everyone for being here. Not everyone is in attendance, but we do have a quorum. Just to review the agenda for today, we are going to start by welcoming our newest members and introducing ourselves. We have minutes to approve. I want to go over with you the statement of purpose for this meeting and talk a little bit about how the meeting is structured and the work that we do, and sort of make sure that we all understand what our process is and talk about how that's working and what we want to do moving forward. I'm also going to make sure we spend some time talking about how to engage the public in the work of this committee, as we have done so much in the past. And then we're going to follow up to the presentations we received at our last monthly meeting regarding making a proposed change to the Columbus Day holiday to instead honor Indigenous Peoples Day and to remove the cotton gin from the town seal. We will, I'm going to introduce to you a new proposal from a resident to create a mural in honor of Black Lives Matter. And we'll talk just briefly about the status of training for staff and committee members. We also, before we leave, want to set our next couple meeting times. Just help me remember that so I don't forget. All right, let's start with a huge welcome to our newest members. We have Ima Ness, Ryan Nguyen, Shazia Mahid. Shazia, I don't know if Mahid is the last name that you use, and I also want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. So please correct me if you have a correction.
Yes, that's my married name, and
Okay.
It's pronounced Majid.
Majid. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. And I would just ask, for the purpose of Alma minutes taking, that if your name is spelled differently than what is written by your Zoom picture, or if you wish to have a different name recorded in the minutes, when we go around to do introductions, will you please just correct the spelling of your name for the purpose of the record? So I would love to start by really saying that how excited I am to have Ima and Shazia and Ryan with us today. We all met a couple of weeks ago to meet you and the 6 other candidates who are up for the role of filling the 3 vacancies on this committee. And it was a not easy decision. If you happen to go back and view our deliberations on the recording of the meeting, you will see that we really felt strongly that we would have loved to included many of the applicants because so many were so strong and would have added great value. That said, we also feel really confident that we made the right decision on choosing the three of you. So we're super excited for you to be here. Everyone but Shelby got to meet you at that meeting. I would say, you know, for the sake of just us getting to know each other a little bit better as a working group, especially since we are stuck in this virtual mode where we don't have a lot of personal interaction, that we expand upon our usual introductions just a bit by introducing yourself with your name and your role, specifically if you're representing a particular department in the town or if you are a community member. And then just to add on to that, why it is that you are, why you want to be part of this committee. And some of you might have been assigned, so hopefully you still have a desired reason to be here. But I think that would be really nice to hear from each other, if you don't mind. So I'm just going to go around in the order that I see you on my screen. If you go one at a time, I'll start with myself. I'm Kara Presley, chairperson of this committee. I use pronouns she, her, and hers. I am also the director of the town's Youth and Family Services Department, which provides free counseling, resources and referrals and consultation to residents, as well as a lot of education and community engagement around issues of behavioral health and emotional wellness throughout the community. I am here because I have a very long-standing history, personally and professionally as a social worker, of working towards social and racial justice. And in the last probably 5 years or so, issues of racial justice have become particularly important to me personally and professionally. And I've really started to do a lot of work in my own life around issues of privilege and systemic racism and dismantling it. And it's been a journey, and it's a work in progress. And I am just trying to find a lot of platforms in my life where I can continue to do that work in a thoughtful and intentional way. And what better way to do it than really looking at a system of municipal government. And I'm really excited to be working with people who are just as passionate about sort of looking at the system and making improvements and celebrating the things that we do well here in Westborough. And then I'll go on to Sarah Connors.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Connors. I'm here representing the Westborough Public Schools. I work over at Hastings Elementary as an ESL teacher for K-3. I am here because I grew up in a town touching Westborough that is not diverse at all. And when I came to Westborough, I was very excited about all the diversity that we had over at Hastings. But I was a little disappointed about how they can sometimes be swept under the rug. So I was in contact with Maeve, our department head for the schools, and she told me that this would be a great spot to start spreading more awareness about who we have in our town.
And Kim Foster.
Hi, Kim Foster. I'm the assistant town manager and HR director. I've been in my role with the town since last October, so not quite a year. I think one of the important aspects of this committee meeting is many of us in municipal government can very easily just get bogged down in what we have to do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that service delivery is continuing. But I think it's important to always have an ear to things that we might not think about and ways we can continue to do things better to make sure we're truly serving all of the residents of the town and not just certain sectors.
Thank you. Ema, you're next.
Hi, my name is Ema Nass, and I'm a new member to this committee, and I'm excited to be here. I am a new resident or recent resident of Westborough. I moved here about 2 years ago, and my background is in community health nursing. So I've done a lot of work within the charter public school system, and currently I work in a nurse leadership position at Harvard University. And the reason why I decided to join this committee is because of it's my passion. It's kind of what I do every day, and is being a person of color and trying to break, I guess, these evil concepts of systemic racism and, these marginalized communities. I really want to, and just the way our socio-political economic community is headed at this point, I feel like we need to come at it at a more united front. So any way that I can participate in sort of bringing the community that I live in more together is what I want to do. So I want to, any way that I can facilitate in that is why I want to join this group.
Thank you, Ima. Dan, you're next.
Hi there, everybody. I'm so excited to be back. My name is Daniel Barber. I'm the circulation supervisor over at the Westborough Public Library. I have worked there for about 2.5 years now. And one part of my job is outreach. So I go out into the community in a non-pandemic world. I go out into the community, I go to different apartment complexes, residents. I try to get people access to materials and resources if they can't get to the physical building. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to be a part of this group. When my boss, Maureen Ambrosino, told me about it, it sounded like a great place professionally for me to make a positive difference with positive people. And personally, I am a member of the LGBTQ+ community. And I have seen how, even though sometimes we think when we live in this part of the country, things are a lot better, they aren't. There's still a lot of work to be done. So I'm excited to be able to do some of that here. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Ryan.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. My name is Ryan Nguyen. I'm a recent Westborough High School graduate, as well as an incoming first-year student at Harvard University. I'll be taking a gap year due to COVID-19. And I guess the reason that I want to be part of this committee is that as the son of refugees and one of 2 Southeast Asian students in Westborough High School who graduated, diversity and inclusion has been an issue that I've cared about all my life. And growing up here, I've realized that we have a long way to go when it comes to completely dismantling systemic racism, getting rid of microaggressions, and so on. And I've learned that we have so much progress to be made from teaching English second language students in the high school's ESL classroom, or running foreign language workshops in our town at the public library, or just going about in my day-to-day life, whether it be at the supermarket or being a student in the classroom. Things need to change, and I definitely would love to be part of that. And that's definitely my #1 reason for wanting to join this committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Shelby.
Take myself off mute. Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Marshall. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend the meeting where you were all interviewed and ultimately chosen. I was enjoying some vacation, so thanks for the opportunity to do that. So I am a, 26-year resident now of Westborough. I came from a small town in Maine originally. My role here is through being a member of the Board of Selectmen. I'm serving the 3rd year of my first term. And so I raised my hand to be part of this committee as really a delegate from that board. Diversity to me represents so many elements. It represents a variety of cultures, color, beliefs, age, and I find it's every step of the way as I learn in my journey. I find it interesting and fascinating. It continues to remind me of the work that we have to do. I want to be part of the work. I want to be part of the hard work. I find it challenging, but this particular opportunity may not be, I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails. Being a member of the Board of Selectmen, I have a question about this. Do you have a minute for that? But those folks may not be represented by, if you will, the constituents or those interested that would engage with this group. And so it's another way for me to really kind of broaden my reach and engagement in the community and reach people that might not be in my immediate personal or professional circles, and to understand what they need. I should add that I am also part of the LGBT community. My wife and I have been married for, I've lost track, I should know that offhand, 2006, longer, together for much longer. We have a daughter in the Westborough Public Schools, and I personally have, through my personal experiences, have felt uncomfortable, discriminated against, a variety of things, but yet I, as an educated white woman, I kind of look at myself in the mirror and I go, you know what, you have no idea how difficult it really can be and what other people go through. So I consider myself privileged in that, and I really want to understand how we all can be considered equal and be in the same boat rowing together, because life is far too short to do anything else. So, and I'm still riding the wave of watching Kamala Harris last night. I still have goosebumps, and not to make it political, but it was a landmark moment of wow. It kind of hit me in a way that I did not anticipate, seeing a woman being on the stage last night, let alone a woman of, who is multicultural, if you will. So thank you.
Thanks, Shelby. Alma.
Hi, I'm Alma Dumanch. I'm the director of the Senior Center. I've been here forever. I was kind of assigned to this committee, but I actually, it's a good thing for me to be here. We have seen so much more diversity in the senior population in the last probably 5 to 10 years. And I think that, that will increase. I find some of the work that this committee's done so far to be very interesting. Met some great people over the last couple of years through the committee. And that's why I'm here. So.
Thank you. Shazia.
Hi, everyone. I'm honored to be here. My name is Shazia Majid, and I'm a community member, a newly appointed one. I joined this community because over the past 2 decades, I've seen Westborough grow, and I've seen the demographics change, and I feel like the work of this committee is even more relevant, important. So all hands on deck. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that's everybody. Not here today is Sergeant Mike Dan.
You forgot me.
Rana! It's because you and Shazia just switched places on my screen, and you're no longer the last person.
Carol.
I do not forget you. I apologize. Please tell us more about you.
So I've been a member of the committee since its inception, as has Alma and Mike, who is not here actually. And I think it's so wonderful to have a committee like this. I started out, and I still do, represent the synagogue that I belong to, Beth Tikva Synagogue. And when listening to you all talk about the issues of diversity, makes me, it's why I'm on with this group of people, because of the concerns and the depth of your caring about things that to me are very, very important. So I sort of see myself as the Jew and the old lady in this group of people. And I think that that's great that I can be with you all, and we all represent different parts of society, and who knows what we can really do together. And I am so happy that Kara sits at the head of this group of people, because I think she is ideal. And I really have and I think it's wonderful that we're all together doing this work. Thank you.
You're very kind. Thank you, Rana. I apologize again. I'm so glad you're here. And I just want to say thank you for those of you who brought into your introductions your identity and your experiences with experiencing marginalization yourself, discrimination, racism, microaggressions of different sorts, and also with that which you see in your everyday life, whether personally or professionally. I too am a member of the LGBTQ community. I'm out with that in every aspect of my life. It's sort of I don't think about it very often anymore, because it's just such a piece of who I am. But I recognize that a lot of people don't know that unless I tell them. And so with that, I recognize that we all hold pieces of our identity that are not known to other people. And some of us have pieces of our identity that are obvious to other people, or other people may assume things about our identity based on how we look or the color of our skin. And I just want to kind of honor that we can't assume what the each other's experiences have been. We may be able to correctly assume that some of us have more privilege than others based on aspects of our identity that are out in the open, such as our skin color. But I just want to honor that we choose to share and not to share different parts of ourselves and bring it into this work. And this is a professional group. We're going to be looking at town. So we are looking at town policies, procedures, services, employment, committees, things that are all very professional and governmental in nature, but we're doing it as individual humans. And so I just want to kind of make sure that we are honoring each other and all the intersections of our identities and our experiences, and creating an environment that is respectful, both for each other and for the people that we invite into this group and to the community that we impact by our decisions and recommendations. So it's a long introduction. I did make a little bit of cushion in the agenda in case we got a little off track. So I think we're still okay. I am going to move to the next agenda item, which is to approve the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. And thank you to our guest minute takers in both cases. The first is July 16th. May I have a motion to approve the July 16th meeting minutes?
Sorry, this is Shelby. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Shelby.
Can Shelby make the motion because she took the minutes?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think so, because I'm a voting member.
Okay.
Yeah, good point. Yep. If I can't, I won't make the motion.
Will someone second it?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion about the minutes as they're written? All right, awesome. May I have, I guess we'll do a roll call vote then, right? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So say your last name and yes or no in support of approving the minutes for July 16th. Sarah?
You can also, excuse me, Karen.
Oh, I can do both minutes at once?
Well, no, I was just going to say, because we have newer members,
Yes.
it's, just wanted to let them know if they choose to abstain, that would be totally appropriate, being that they weren't at they can still vote to approve them, but they weren't here. So I just wanted to make sure that they knew that that was a vote that they could take as well.
I was going to say
Thank
they
you.
can only vote to approve the minutes if they were at the meeting.
All right.
So it'd
So
be
those are,
Kara, Mike, Rana, Kim, Sarah, Dan, and Shelby.
okay. So I'll call on each of those people. All right. So I'm just going to call in order that I see them on the minutes, which is Mike is not present. Okay. Me. Yes. Kara Presley. Rana,
Yes, Rana.
Kim,
Foster, yes.
Sarah,
Connors, yes.
Dan,
Barber, yes.
Shelby.
Marshall, yes.
All right, thank you. Next, we have the minutes.
I'm sorry, Carrie, just for everyone's benefit, Alma, you're
Yes.
taking minutes for this meeting, right? That's typically, I know you've done that in the past. I just want to make sure.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
For those of you who are new members, I'm sorry I failed to mention
That's
this.
okay.
Alma is the secretary for our committee. So she takes minutes unless she's absent, and then we ask for a volunteer to take minutes in her absence. And thank you for being here. I was mistaken when I said that Alma wasn't going to be here. That was my misunderstanding. All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 6th?
Motion approved.
So moved.
Rana gives the motion. A second?
Second?
I'll
Dan,
second
was that you?
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Barber, second. Yeah.
All right, great. Any discussion or changes on the minutes from August 6th? All right, again, I'll call on the people who were present at that meeting to do a vote. Starting with me, Kara Presley, yes. Kim,
Foster, yes.
Rana,
Rappaport, yes.
Sarah,
Connors, yes.
Mike's not here. Dan,
Barber, yes.
Alma.
Much, yes.
All right, awesome. We're done with that item. Okay, so let's talk for a few minutes about what this committee is all about. We gave our little spiel when our new members were welcomed here, and we've talked about it a few times over the course of my tenure, but I think this is my 6th meeting I've chaired. So, you know, I'm still relatively new, and most of you are new. Rana and Alma and Mike are veterans, but the rest of us weren't around at the origins of this. And Christy's not here to talk about it either. So we're going to talk about it as far as what we understand our purpose to be, and just without making any new decisions about how we want to do things today, I just want us to, as we go, kind of process, like think together about what this process is and how it can be improved upon, what's working, and what we might need to tweak or add or change or do differently. So the statement of purpose, which was presumably, Rana and Alma, correct me if I'm wrong, created at the inception of the committee back in 2016, is the following. The purpose of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is to review town services to ensure services are provided equally and are accessible to all residents, and further, to identify ways to promote increased diversity and inclusiveness in town services, employment, and volunteer opportunities. So my understanding is that that's not necessarily a mission statement. It's sort of just, I don't know who decided this, what the statement would be, but it's sort of just what gives us guidance about our work. Is that correct for those of you who were around from the beginning, or Kim, who's been doing some research?
Mm-hmm. I think it was based on what the time that the board formed the committee.
Right.
Okay.
It's based.
Okay, good. And Rana or Alma, I don't know, was there any, or maybe Shelby as a board member, you know this history, is there anything you know about, was there any kind of dialogue about how to come up with this statement of purpose? Was there discussion of values? Was there any strategic kind of planning around this committee, and how it would work, what the process would be?
I do not.
I remember.
Oh,
Okay.
Rana, go ahead, Sarah.
Not as far as I remember. Alma, do you remember anything? I don't think so. I
Not
think
that I'm aware of.
right.
We were sort of given our charge by the Board of Selectmen and kind of
Right.
went with that.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the beginning, I mean, Kristen has said this to us in past meetings. The original committee was made up of 9 appointed employees, town employees, and 2 appointed community members. Rana was one of those community members. And the rest of the appointees were either department heads, or if the department heads for the particular department weren't, didn't have the capacity to participate, there was a representative from those departments. And Christy has talked about how that structure, the design of that structure in the beginning was not only to have kind of a voice of representation from all, like a bunch of different departments, corners of the government, but also to have some level of accountability. Kind of the idea that people from each department would take back to their departments the discussions and decisions of this committee and put them into practice, so that there was some accountability there. Over time, it has evolved. The makeup has changed. Alma and I are department heads. The other employee representatives are have other roles in their various departments. And just by the nature of the people and the things that are happening in the community, I think sort of what we meet, like the purpose of us each being here has sort of changed. The only other thing I really know structure-wise about this group is that we are not a decision-making body. We are a body who makes recommendations to decision makers. So we make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, to the town manager, about changes or things that we want to see done in the town. And then those folks make a decision about what happens next. And we'll give an example of sort of how that's a work in progress with one of our issues and how that's working now. But sort of with the idea that the Board of Selectmen and the town manager formed our committee kind of out of respect that if we make a recommendation on a particular issue that they will heed our recommendation or take it very seriously. And that it's our job then to explore the issues that are before us, whether they are ones that residents bring to the table or that we bring to the table ourselves or that employees bring to the table, that we are to sort of investigate that issue, look at it from all different angles and do our research on an issue and sort of come to a conclusion together of what we think should be acted upon about that issue and then bring that to the powers that be. Does anyone else have a different understanding or an additional understanding of sort of the work of this group?
The only piece I would add is that I think that the most recently, and that brings Ryan, Shazia, and Emma to is it Emma or Ima? I'm sorry. Emma, thank you. Okay. I'm gonna write that phonetically so I remember. Thank you for the correction. So what brought the three of you to this group really is the Board of Selectmen also recognizing that it was most important for there to be community representation, more community representation on this committee than a heavier balance, if you will, of representation by town departments, which was really it was the inverse previously. So I think that's a significant improvement to the committee. I think that when we think about town services, it's one thing to I think it's important for us to hear from departments about opportunities for improvement and to address the work of this committee, but the recipients of those services really can speak best to whether or not they're being delivered fairly and equally, et cetera. So that most recent change, I think, is critically important and really sort of sets sort of a different type of tone going forward for this committee and in its work.
Thank you. Another piece of discussion we've had since I've been around is a conversation about what this committee is not, and some examples of things that we don't do, and we've learned this in part because people have asked us if we do it, is things like community celebrations or cultural events, that kind of thing, organizing rallies. It's not to say that we couldn't get behind and support those activities that are happened in the community. I can imagine that could be our role in some cases, but it's not something that we would take the initiative on. So it really is focused on government services, policies, and procedures. So with that said, I mean, it gives us a little bit of structure to kind of think about our work together, but I also recognize that for those of us who are part of other committees and other working groups and different departments, sometimes, you know, I also, as the department head for the youth and family services, I participate in the youth commission meetings, and we went through a whole process of strategic planning where we came up with our mission, revised mission, values, that kind of thing. And I'm not suggesting that we need to go through a whole formal strategic planning process, but we might find at some point that we want to shore up our mission, or clarify it, or recognize or acknowledge the foundational values that it stands upon. I don't have a particular suggestion about whether we do that, dive into that, or whether we should do it or not, but I just kind of want to throw it out there, looking at how some other committees do certain things. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I think structure, I'll jump in. I think structure is helpful. It can also be limiting. I think personally, I would love to see this committee make some recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, even if they're small, to deliver a product, if you will. Maybe that's my type A coming out. So that as a committee, we can feel good about that work, the time that we're putting in, and so that the community can understand the purpose of the committee, and in doing that, maybe have more community engagement through all of us. I know that's an agenda item that Karen, that's on there about kind of community engagement or outreach. So I'd like to see some early wins, for lack of a better way to say it. But I do think at some point, some sort of visioning project or effort would be helpful, because we could also find ourselves sort of like grasping at, oh, this seems important, let's do this, and not focused and not productive. So just my 7 cents.
Shelby, I agree. Do you have any ideas or thoughts what that might be?
So Karen and I have both been through similar, I mean, I wasn't part of the Youth and Family Services effort, but I'm familiar with the strategic work that they did. And I've been through some similar sessions. Ryan, I think you were part of that. So I see you nodding. So I don't want to speak for you guys in that process, but I think there's a scale of the budget that you could do that. I think it's sort of a whiteboard, some stickies, visioning. It's a couple series of things, and then kind of coming up with some tenets, if you will, and goals and objectives, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's hard work. It's more complicated given that we're in COVID right now. So my personal view is that, again, we should get some wins and then kind of find ways that we can come together to do that other kind of work. And it might be subcommittee work of this committee. That's another way to do it too, so that, we're not all trying to do that together, but work is being done. So lots of different ways in which we could attack that.
Thanks, Shelby.
Thanks,
Kim?
Shelby.
I'll do Kim and then Sarah.
No, I think I'd echo Shelby's comments. I'm feeling like we have a couple of concrete matters before us to have some discussion and potentially formulate a recommendation on. So I'd like to see us take that up in our time. And I think, it's been a while since we've had substantive issues. I think maybe the cemetery regulations were the last ones. So I'd appreciate if we could spend our time on those right now.
Sarah?
I also think about the families that I work closely with, which are mostly Latino families, and how there's probably things that they are going through in Westborough that we don't really know about yet. So I would love to have some type of mission statement that I could bring to them and say, if you're feeling any way, you can reach out to me about it. because I think that might be somewhere that we're lacking representation as well.
Other comments on this idea of visioning and mission? So just to build on what both Shelby and Kim were saying, I think that we have a couple of concrete issues before us that we are going to do the work on, that we're doing the work on, and we will continue to do the work on and make recommendations around. And that gives us something to sink our teeth into and see how this process works. And as we do that, I think it will become clearer sort of where our needs and gaps and wants are, of how to continue to do this work more, not only in response to requests and requests and proposals from residents, but also proactively in the striving towards a particular vision or mission. So I think it might be worth continuing to talk about and visit. And indeed, this is work that we could do as a subcommittee. We can talk about whether or not to hire a consultant to do a little piece of it. But let's kind of just have that on the table. And I see Kim shaking her head. I don't know. Is there anything else? Okay, you weren't shaking your head at me. I just wanted to. I don't. This whole remote thing. It's hard to read people. But we will keep that in discussion. I even think about the questions we asked of you, Ryan and Shazia and Ima, about what are the issues that you would like to see this committee take up. And I know that in addition to those great ideas and suggestions that you named, I have my own, right? Like, and I imagine we each have. I mean, Sarah's talked about some of the needs of the families that she's served. And so I think there's going to be more work for us to do. And once we get these particular issues kind of rolling, we might have a sense for how we're going to face the next issues and how to identify the issues proactively that we want to look at next. All right, super helpful, thank you. The next agenda item is how to engage the community. And for those of you who weren't terribly involved in this before you became appointed members, you may not know that this committee used to be one that met every month and was open to the public, and it really had a great amount of public participation from what I understand. Rana and Alma, you can certainly speak to that. But I know I actually met Shazia. That's how I met you, Shazia, because you would come to those meetings and you were kind of the final few that kind of held on before we went into hiatus when we were kind of struggling. And so I know that there are a whole bunch of people that I have actually an email list called diversity and inclusion guests that I have who used to come and used to be really interested in this work. And I know want to participate still and again. Right now, we can't have people come to these meetings. To have 20 people or 30 people on this screen is really overwhelming, and it's hard to structure a Zoom meeting to be inclusive of all of those people. But we want to find ways, in addition to just having, people watch and, be involved from the outside, how do we really engage the community in a meaningful way right now? Because we will be likely remote for a few months to come if we're being realistic about it. So one thing we have done already proactively is we created an email. I've already gotten 3 or 4 emails on that email. Most of them are from people out of town actually wondering about the work of our committee. So, Google is working. But it's, the email address for those of you watching is diversity@town.westborough.ma.us. And I welcome anyone to send me an email with any question, topic, concern, anything that you have to say about that might be relevant to this committee, and I'll bring it to the committee and try to give you some kind of response. But I want to think with you all about what are the other ways in which we can engage the community in a meaningful way, and not just the community members who are like the ones who always watch Westborough TV, right? Like, we know that that's a particular sect of the Westborough community, and it's not all of the people that we're talking about when we're talking about true access to these committees and inclusion in our services and decision making. So please share with me your thoughts. Sarah.
I've been wondering if we could do some sort of suggestion box or something where it's translated into our 3 major languages. I think there are about 3. It's at least at my school, it's Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. I think are the major ones that we have here in town. But I'm wondering if we could do like suggestion box either at the town hall or maybe a lot of my families go to the library. That way it's not always online because a lot of my families don't have access to email. So I'm wondering if we're missing a huge chunk of people because of the internet access and if paper would allow us to have more of a engagement with them.
Thank you for that idea. That's a really good one. And now my brain is going about, ooh, where could we put them? So let's talk more about that. What other thoughts? Yes, Kim.
So you and I had talked about this a while ago, and as I think about it, part of it for me, I think in the abstract, it's hard to come up with suggestions, but if we're talking about a specific issue, for instance, the town seal, I think depending on the issue that we're discussing, and there may be different approaches to the type of engagement that we're seeking, and specifically, what is it that we need to know? Are we looking for people's opinion on, a suggestion, an A or a B, or is it what kind of feedback are we looking for? I think it's going to be different for different things. So I personally have a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out, I don't think it's one size fits all when you talk about engagement. And I think there's 2 pieces to it. There's engagement around getting feedback on a specific issue so that we as a committee are informed when we make our recommendation to the board, because I feel strongly they need to understand whatever our recommendation is, it's to share both sides. This is what the committee ultimately is recommending, but here's the other side of the argument or the issue. So that's sort of related to specific recommendations. The other piece is we talk about engagement. I think sometimes we're just talking about the level of participation, be it, people coming out when we hold the public meetings and they can actually attend in person, or the number of folks who are watching it online. In my mind, I sort of tease those are 2 different things. So I just want to be clear when we're talking about it, are we talking about around a specific issue, or are we just talking about more general interest? So I think when we say engagement, I think it's important to really define what do we mean by that?
Yeah.
I think Ema had her hand up.
Yeah, Ema, sorry. Thank you for helping me keep track.
Yeah. Actually, I shared very similar thoughts to Kim, actually, because engagement, I was wondering what that meant. Does that mean promotion of the group to sort of explain more to the community what our purpose is, what our mission is, and inviting the community to participate in that? Or, what does engagement exactly mean? And that got me thinking of, too, in regards to promotion, is it more so in creating the email, since we're all sort of buckled down and dependent on technology for a lot of our communications? I know when I first moved to Westborough, one of the things that I found helpful was like a Westborough Facebook group, and that was really helpful to kind of get in touch with
Oops,
the
we
community.
lost your audio there, Ema.
As to,
Okay,
what, oops, sorry.
It's
Can you
okay,
hear me now?
you're back now.
Okay. So just asking, about local community engagement, just kind of what's around town, access, things of that nature. So I think that'd be really, so I think just defining what we mean by engagement would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, I think.
Before I move on to you, Ryan, I see your hand. I want to
Excuse me,
acknowledge that
I'm
Shelby.
interrupting for a second because
Oh,
I have
sure,
to say
Rana.
goodbye. I apologize.
Okay, that's
but
right.
I have to leave. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Thank you, Rana.
Bye.
And I was actually interrupting the process because I know Shelby has to leave as well. Shelby, I don't know really what the protocol is for this and Roger's rules of order, but I want
Roger, Robert, whoever, it should be like
Roberts.
Rana's rules.
Robert. Yeah, see, I really don't know, but I'm
Go with
learning.
Chair's prerogative.
Okay.
Right? I want to continue this conversation about community engagement because it's one we've started and continued so much, and I think it is worth more conversation, but I kind of want to pick Shelby's brain, or at least get a statement from Shelby about what's happening with the Board of Selectmen with the town seal issue. Is it okay to like jump ahead and then jump back a
Chair's
little bit?
prerogative.
Yep.
Okay, all right, great. So as the chair, I'm going
Ryan,
to
hold your
pause this
thought that you were
conversation,
gonna-
come back to it.
Okay.
And we're going to follow up just really quick. I wanted to follow up about the presentation we had about changing the town seal,
Sure.
because the Board of Selectmen does have some information about where things stand with that. So just to bring those of you up to speed who may not have been a part of that conversation, we had a guest presenter, Charlene Thibault, who had previously presented to the board and then came to present to us a proposal to remove the image of the cotton gin, which is slated, which is Eli Whitney is identified as the inventor of the cotton gin, and he is a former Westborough person. Removing that from the town seal and replacing it with something else because of the links with the cotton gin to our history of systemic racism and specifically to slavery. So we have done some learning about that issue, and the Board of Selectmen has taken some steps along the way. And Shelby, why don't you just tell us where things are at with that?
Sure. So the Board of Selectmen heard that presentation. The Board of Selectmen subsequently heard a presentation by Dr. Anthony Baver, who is the town's local history librarian. Dan knows him well. And so he further provided some further education to the board on the cotton gin and the history of the cotton gin itself.
Shelby, I'm sorry, can you say who that was again?
Dr. Baver, Anthony Baver, Tony Baver.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so the board agreed that the matter of the town seal and whether or not it will change should go to town meeting. So I don't want to make any assumptions here. So you have the Board of Selectmen and we create policies where we have appropriate purview to do that. We approve the budget, we set the town meeting warrant, but ultimately the legislative body in the town is through an open town meeting process where any person who is a resident and over the age of 18 can come and vote and determine, approve the budget and approve spending of money and approve things like, do we want to change the town seal? So it is anticipated that item will be an article on the annual town meeting warrant, which is in the spring. So typically it's in March. And it's typically around St. Patrick's Day, mid-March. So the first vote that would come before the people, and there would be a presentation at town meeting and an opportunity for the voters to engage and provide their views, would be a question of, do we want to change the town seal in so many ways or so many words? And part of that motion in the article may also include, and to allow, for example, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee to take the lead to frame the process by which we might define a new town seal. That could be part of the whole motion. We don't know yet. Depending upon the vote of that, yay or nay, if it's yes, the town decides that it wants to change the town seal, then there would be a process that would follow of, okay, what does a new town seal look like? Do we engage artists? What's that process, et cetera, and then it would likely come back before the town. It would have to come back before the town's legislative body again in another town meeting to ultimately approve the new town seal. And I'm not seeing Kim saying, no, you're off. So I think she's keeping me honest here, that I'm being accurate in all the process. So that's kind of the process. So when you really think about this, this could take, so we have two town meetings, two meetings, one in the spring, one in the fall. It could take 2 annual town meetings, or, which I don't think is likely if the first one would be approved. It could be that it's a spring and a fall and kind of is wrapped up in that time period, but again, to be determined. So that's where things stand. So I think that to the earlier conversation of what is our role and what's our vision and all of that, it's very appropriate for this committee to bring forward a recommendation and potentially speak at town meeting as a committee as to the committee's position based on what we've heard from the community, based on our own research, etc. Okay.
Thank you, Shelby.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions for Shelby before she leaves?
I do apologize. I will watch the rest of the meeting and the presentation. I'm sorry to got back to back. I do just want to back to the other conversation we were having, Kara, about community engagement. Great points made by Emma and Kim. I think how we engage is totally going to vary based on where we're at in our journey. And I would also say, I mean, I'm a huge geeky fan of town meeting, but Sarah, when I think about the folks that you just mentioned that you engage in, the families, I think about that is an amazing way to engage folks, to say, we have this thing called town meeting and you are welcome to participate in this process. And even when we think about service and equity and access, do folks understand that they can come, and how they vote, and what is that process? So, and we have a great town moderator who I know would be willing to kind of offer some tutorials. So that's even a kind of a simple way of how do we engage the community in being decision makers and voting in this town. So just want to share that.
Thanks, Shelby.
You bet. Okay, I'm going to sign off. You guys have a great meeting. I do apologize. I'm going to leave early. Great to meet you all. Bye.
So before we return to the topic of community engagement, let's just do a little check on the agenda to keep us on track. To end at 4:30, we're going to have to make some slight adjustments. Despite the room I thought I left for us, we could use some more. So I think actually the follow-up to the presentations for the two proposals will be brief, and we will talk about the new proposal, which hopefully you all got to read about in your packet. So I want to make sure that we do that. To be honest, we don't have much of a status update about training for staff yet. So that's the status update. There you go, Alma. Right? Like Kim on behalf of the town manager's office, and do you have anything else to add, Kim? Just trying to be brief about that.
No, we're given the world we're in right now, the COVID world, it's a little challenging to do, I think, meaningful training. I think this type of training specifically, it's something we had started looking at prior to COVID, and I'm not sure, given the there's a significant cost to doing this training. I think the most value is the type of thing that doing it in person. So unfortunately it delays it, because I foresee we're going to be in this remote meeting world for probably at least through the fall. But it's a priority on our side, sort of on the HR side. So it hasn't been completely pushed to the bottom. It's just the matter of getting the most out of it.
Thank you, Kim. And Kim and I are both like looking at different training options, like trying to look for different facilitators and types of trainings and that kind of thing. So as we actually come up with anything concrete, because so far we don't have much, we'll make sure that gets put back on the agenda. So,
and Kara,
yes,
I just want to be clear. One of the things we had talked about, and I think where we landed in the last discussion, we're talking about training specific to staff. And I think we had talked about there might be some additional training that could be for board and committee members. And then somebody had raised the idea of doing something in the community, which would probably be a little bit outside of what we're talking about. Not that we can't try to facilitate those things, but there's, I think we might potentially have sort of 3 different training models that we're really looking at.
So and we can revisit those models, but the one that we're moving forward with the most intention is around staff training, mandatory staff training for town employees. But that does not say that we aren't still looking at how do we make sure that this committee is, on the same page with stuff. So we want to think about that together, but let's keep that light for agenda item for today and move that to another day for more in-depth discussion. Okay, I'm going to call on Ryan and then Shazia. And yes, returning to the conversation about community engagement. I think we'll take this conversation for about 5 more minutes and then we'll move on. No more than 5 minutes. Ryan.
So on a similar tangent to what Shelby and Sarah were saying about turning actual community members into decision making, I really resonate with Sarah's idea of having suggestion boxes translated into different languages, because I believe that engagement starts with accessibility and exposure. So having people listen to, so I guess another idea that I want to bring up was the possibility of subtitling these meetings or in different languages, or having a transcript translated into Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, so that actual community members could listen to this discussion, this dialogue, as I know that when I listen to other people speak, ideas are just sparked inside me. So when we have community members of various backgrounds, of diverse backgrounds, ESL communities, immigrant communities, listen to these discussions in their own languages, they have that ability to form meaningful ideas about what can be done to tackle issues in their own communities and households. So definitely just more accessibility in the language field. Translations, I believe, are highly crucial. And I guess another benefit of subtitling or translating these meetings are that people who are deaf or hard of hearing are also able to join us for discussion and dialogue about very incredibly important issues and topics.
Thank you for bringing those issues, Sarah and Ryan, about accessibility to all members of our community. Yeah, thank you. Shazia.
Hi, so I actually had a comment for both the agenda items that were being discussed. The current item, I had similar thoughts as everybody, before me, about what kind of engagement we're looking at. So in that respect, I believe we should have parallel engagement in terms of broader feedback on what people, like thoughts coming from them, and then like the 2 current items that are on the agenda, specific feedback regarding those items, and then we could, maybe solicit specific ideas about those. Like if you're thinking in a certain direction, we could solicit answers, replies, feedbacks in line with those ideas. Like make it more structured on specific topics that are being discussed currently, as opposed to a broader feedback for anybody who has an idea they want to share. On that thought, I also wanted to ask, how much is social media engaged? I do know the Dropbox idea is excellent because not everybody is on the web, but what are the limitations, like a Facebook page or like Twitter? Like what is, we need to come up with what is allowed and what we think is most productive in soliciting that feedback.
I'll speak to part of that. right away, Shazia. This committee does not have its own Facebook page, but the town has a Facebook page. And I'm confident that if we were develop content for that Facebook page, whether it was regular posts or particular announcements or updates, that the town manager would be in support of posting those on the town's Facebook page. That's not to say that we couldn't develop a Facebook page, but that means one of us or more of us have to, administer it.
Yeah, we need to see what's the best move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Let's keep talking about that. Sarah, did you have something about social media? Okay.
So I also teach the adult ESL classes, and we also have a Facebook page. So that is another place that I could put like links to things that we talk about or flyers or anything, because I have a lot of parents on that Facebook page. But also, if we did want to run another one, I'd be willing to do it as well.
Super generous. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Kim?
mean, if we can piggyback on something already
go ahead.
existing, that's best.
Okay. Were you going to say something, Kim?
No, I was just going to say one thing to keep in mind, because we are a public body, what the value of social media tends to be a way for us to push things out and post things. The dialogue and the discussion or deliberation that you might have as an individual user on social media, just keep in mind, as a committee, we can't use social media in that same capacity. I don't know if I'm articulating what I'm trying to say, but it's a way for us to get information out to individuals, which I'm supportive of. And I think we could make use of the town's social media, what we already have access to. But it's that interactive dialogue back and forth is more difficult. Again, we don't want to run afoul as we're a committee, and that could be construed as deliberation.
Oh yeah, definitely not that. Yeah, that's not what I implied.
And also to that point, I think that there's other media outlets that we can think about too, for both informing the community about who we are and what we're doing, and also informing them about specific topics and soliciting input about specific topics. So a year ago, someone from the Community Advocate came to this committee and said, I'm writing an article. And when I became the chairperson, she said, well, let me interview you. And we didn't really have a lot going on at that point. So we deferred, but now we have a lot going on. So if it's of interest to the committee, I'm happy to contact that reporter and, encourage her to watch these meetings and potentially do an article about our committee. Is that something people would be interested in? Is there anyone who would have concerns or opposition to that? Not a formal vote, but just for discussion purposes.
Just a heads up, Kara, they have covered, so some of the issues that are covered in our meetings, they have covered, the reporter did cover the town seal issue is a good one.
Okay, I think I knew that. Yeah. So I think it would be more about like the committee itself and sort of doing a little, who are we and what are we doing? So we can do that. And then I just want to also acknowledge that between Sarah and Dan and our 3 new community members, we have a very wide reach in this town, and Alma with the seniors. And I have my own network through Youth and Family Services. We have the potential for very wide distribution of information. And so I think that I would look to each of you and the communities that you have touch points with to better understand, just as you have today, like what are the ways to communicate to people that would be most effective. Ryan, regarding translation and interpretation, I think that's a really great thing to look at. Let's look at that. We started talking about kind of language access plans, and we've made some motion on language access, and you're introducing to us another layer of it that we haven't started discussing. And so I think that that is worth putting kind of as a sooner than later issue to look at in a formal way by this community, or by this committee. When we're done with, when we get through some of these issues that are ahead of us right now, I think that continuing to look at language access, and that is not only electronic language access, but to your point, Sarah, like how do we access people in all ways in many languages? So I'm going to propose that we put a short, like no more than 10-minute agenda item each week that is a community update. And right now, that can be me sharing with you any emails or issues that come up in emails that come into that diversity email list. And then to you as committee members to bring to this group any updates you get from your worlds. We do that in the Youth Commission. The youth come and do a report each week about, and sometimes it's topic specific. Like we say, all right, go out and ask everyone you know their opinions and thoughts and questions about the issue of the Columbus Day holiday, and then bring it back as a report to this committee. So we can do that. What do you think about that? About having a dedicated agenda item every month that we talk about community updates, and it could be just to have it as a like standing item there to do kind of the informal things that come up, and then issue specific stuff. We'll try to find specific ways, as Kim suggested and Shazia suggested, to look at topics, like how do we engage around a specific topic. We might want to do different engagement around one topic than another topic, and do it that way.
I have a question about that. So
Ryan.
would that be similar to the youth report that the Youth Commission does at each of their monthly meetings?
I don't know. We'll have to just play it by ear and see. At this point, I think I would just be looking to all of you as community members and looking to what the community brings to us to do a report on, what are you seeing? What are you hearing, either about the issues that we're talking about right now, or is there something new that's come up that we need to have our eye on?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So that will be continued. All right, follow up to our presentations. Let's start with the town seal, since Shelby already got us started with that conversation. We had Charlene Thibault come and talk to us about her proposal, which is supported by many in the community, to remove the town seal and change the town seal so that the cotton gin is not on it. And as Shelby said, that is an issue that's going to go before town meeting. Meanwhile, as Shelby suggested, we may have a role in gathering information beyond what the historian has already shared, right? Like in some other capacity to bring to town meeting. And moreover, whether we decide to do that in a formal way or not, once that vote happens, if indeed the vote is to remove the cotton gin, then we might have a role in figuring out how to make that happen. Like, what are the logistical steps, supporting the town manager and the board of selectmen in figuring out, like, how's that going to happen, and how do we identify a new seal? That might be a role that we play as well. Kim, is there anything you'd like to offer to that conversation about the town seal, just from your perspective from the town manager's office?
No, I think my recollection during the board meeting after they had the presentation from the town historian was the idea, at one point the board was interested in potentially holding a public hearing to get more community input, but where they landed with moving it to town meeting, since town meeting ultimately will vote on it, town meeting's probably the appropriate venue for that additional discussion and input. So that's where the conversation went from kind of the meeting prior. There was a lot of talk about how do we hold a public hearing? How do we, meet safely? Do we do something outside? There was a lengthy discussion about that. And then at the next meeting, they backed off of that when the discussion was focused on, if it's on the warrant at town meeting and town meeting ultimately votes on it, that's the appropriate place for that continued public discussion.
Thank you. Any other comments for now about the issue of the town seal? If you weren't able to see those presentations either at the Board of Selectmen meeting or from our meeting, was 2 meetings ago that we had those presentations. So feel free to watch that meeting on Westborough TV. All right, now to the issue of the proposal to change the Columbus Day holiday to Indigenous Peoples Day. This is something that I think that it would be totally appropriate for our committee to come up with a specific recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. It's a national holiday. It's a state holiday, although I know that there's proposals above in front of the state to change that as well. I don't know in what way the town recognizes Columbus Day, except to give, town employees the day off, and the schools are closed, I believe. So in that way, it is recognized. It's on the town calendars. And such. So I think there is room. I don't know who the decision-making body is around something like that. Kim, do you?
No, I was just thinking that I'm like, what would the recommendation be? I think that's where we need to give some thought. Is it a recommendation that, any reference to that holiday name get changed? So I guess that's the question. Are we talking about proposing anything more than, instead of calling it Columbus Day, calling it Indigenous Peoples Day, or is there more around it?
Yeah. So this is a conversation I'd also like to pull the superintendent of schools in, because it would be nice if any recommendation that we make to the town could also be consistent with a recommendation to the schools. Sarah, do you have an update on that?
So I haven't had the chance to actually speak with her because she's been working like crazy on our reopening plan. However, when she and Daniel Mayer, the assistant superintendent, sent out our proposed reopening plan, I did notice that on the calendar, it says Indigenous Peoples Day, not Columbus Day. So yeah, I was actually really excited. So I'm not sure if that is because she knows she hasn't spoken to us, but I did bring up the fact that we were talking about it, or if that's something they are feeling strongly about as well. But I do hope in the next couple of weeks, once school is open, she might have a couple of minutes to just touch base with me. But I will be reaching back out once we get back into school and things calm down a bit.
Thank you. Then I have pretty close contact with Amber Bach, the school superintendent, as well. So I think between the two of us, Sarah, we can have some more communication with her. The date is around the corner. It's less than 2 months away. So I think that if we were going to do something in this year, we need to do it quickly. I don't know formally how exactly to take the next steps, Kim.
So I think that's what we need to define is what is it we want to propose, and figure out a timeline. And honestly, the 2 months, 2 months seems like a long time, but it's not. So if we can't have a decision made by then, maybe as we approach that upcoming date, at least we acknowledge that this is something that the committee's been talking about. We're still formulating an exact recommendation, but at least acknowledge that, we might not get it done in time for this year. So, but I guess one thing we could do is, I know people have mentioned other communities have addressed this. We could look at exactly what have their proposals been. There might be a piece where we need to understand if it's a federal holiday, if it's a state holiday, are there certain documents where we need to maintain reference to it as such? So that's all of the type of thing that I think we still might need to do a little bit of research on, so that we would formulate whatever our proposal might be with that in mind. I don't recall, was this the one where we talked about, we had some specific communities were mentioned that had already done this?
Yes, so I think we can go back to Sarah McCabe's presentation and to Sarah herself and the group of residents to do a little bit deeper research on that. I mean, I would love for our next steps to be to have a volunteer or two from this committee to be in contact with Sarah, or like look back at Sarah's presentation and do a little bit of outreach maybe to those towns, or to explore if you can find out anything about what's happening in those particular towns. Sarah, your hand, does that mean you're volunteering to do a little research?
Yeah, I can do it. I think one of the towns, it's down the Cape, it's either Mashpee or Wareham. I was reading about theirs. So I can definitely call people and see what I can find out.
Thank you.
And the other thought I have is, given that we are working on a relatively short timeline as we approach this October, we should maybe think of it as, is there something we can do now, but there's more that we would want to follow up with if it's going to take longer. So we can, I don't think we need to think of it as all or nothing right now. Maybe it's piecemeal.
I agree. If we come out with a statement as a committee about our recommendation and our, opinion, I think that could be a powerful statement in October, even if there are other formal steps that we won't be able to take in the next 2 months. Ema, Shazia, Dan, Ryan, Alma, any other thoughts about what our next steps are with the proposal to honor Indigenous Peoples Day?
I think that, I agree with Kim in some respects. It is a federal holiday. So I think that the Board of Selectmen in Westborough could make a statement supporting changing the name of the federal holiday. But we can call it whatever we want, but as long as it's, like I said, still a federal holiday, I'm not sure if we can just randomly change it ourselves. Especially like Kim said, in some of our documents and things, we have to be careful about that. So,
right. So I think it would be a recommendation such as we would recommend that on the town calendar, the official town calendar, that the holiday would be renamed. And we could put out a public statement as to why we would support that recommendation. That in our HR documents, these are, I'm not making this proposal right now, these are things we can do. But in our HR documents, we have a list of holidays that we get off every year that we make, we propose that there be an official HR holiday name change. So there are very concrete ways we could do that. In Sarah McCabe's presentation and proposal, she was also making that recommendation to the school. She was not proposing any change to curriculum in the school, but as Sarah Connors presented to us a couple meetings ago, there is interest and action happening already in the schools around that. And that's not our jurisdiction, but we can think about, the other parts of the town. Yes, Kim?
The other piece of this may be if there are other efforts out there, sort of a group effort to have the state more formally recognize a name change, and we wanted to sign on in support of that. That could be the board does that oftentimes. There will be things at the state level, and the board will send a letter to our legislative delegation in support of something. So I think with any of the issues that are coming up, we should keep in mind that could always be part of our recommendation. A lot of these things we don't have to go alone, or there may be other efforts out there that we want to be on record as formally supporting.
So in our September meeting, I suggest that we dedicate a good half hour to this conversation so that we can flesh out some of our decisions around this, some of our recommendations, and have a sense of, have a plan for what we want to kind of put out in the world before that October date. Any other comments or suggestions before we move on?
So is someone researching, our ability or federal restrictions around this topic?
Good question.
I can do that.
If Sarah lets me know which communities you find out have done this, maybe I can help with that aspect of it.
Perfect.
Sometimes they've already raised those questions, and if we can benefit from what they've learned.
Yeah.
Alma, is there an additional piece that you would like to do beyond what?
We need to contact Congressman McGovern's office at the very least and find out if there is discussion about this. I know there's discussion about it all over the country, so it's not just us doing it. Just to find out if there's discussion serious discussion about it in Washington about changing the name of the holiday.
Would you be willing to reach out to that office?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we are going to go beyond 4:30 because I do want to talk about this new proposal. We won't take too much more time, but I hope you all can hang on with us while we finish our agenda. We'll try to do so efficiently. So we have a new proposal from Alla Baranovsky. I spoke with Alla on the phone. She outlined to me in depth sort of what she and her group We Care is trying to do. My understanding is that We Care did a presentation about who they are and what they're doing and some proposals around the schools with the school committee about a month ago. Did anybody see that? Sarah? Okay. I have not seen that, but I heard it was really good and very interesting. So it's just a grassroots organizing effort by residents of Westborough who the title is Westborough Committee for Anti-Racism in Education. So they really are focused on the priority is education, but they're also looking at awareness raising and activism community-wide. And they are proposing, in short, I'll give a brief summary, that Westborough create a mural on a street, a roadway, in honor of Black Lives Matter, a mural specifically that says Black Lives Matter, that is created by local artists and supported by the community. Initially, I was like, I'm not sure if this is a matter for the town because they're not the actual action, all the activity of the proposal would be done by non-town people, except there is a piece for us. There's a couple pieces for us. And so I want to kind of outline that. So did everybody have a chance to read the proposal that Alla sent us?
Yep.
And we can include those in the minutes for when we approve the minutes for the public to see. Alla included in the presentation some hyperlinks, which won't be visible to and won't be viewable by the written minutes, but you'll still get a pretty good idea of what they've been doing. But they're proposing a community effort that involves local artists, maybe the cultural council if they are interested. And then our place in the matter is that they want to do this on a public street and that they are requesting to have police detail on the one day that they would propose the installation. As the proposal says, this is not a permanent installation they're suggesting. But thank you, Ima. We'll see you. It was great to have you here for your first meeting. But something that might fade within a year or two. So that is what's on the table. Alla would love to come and speak to our committee and give a presentation in more depth about what she's proposing. And as I've clarified for her, our role in it is limited. We have very specific way that we can be involved. But we could have a role in communicating with certainly with the police, certainly with the Department of Public Health, and then, making a recommendation if we think that this is something we want to do or not to do. So it's sort of up to us to kind of explore with whoever parties we need to explore if we want to do this or not. Kim?
So stepping back in thinking about this, so this is a very specific proposal about a specific message, and I'm stepping back and kind of separating it from the proposal before us with the message, and looking at it from what might it be that we'd go to the Board of selectmen and recommend. And I'm thinking it's potentially that the board, I don't know that they have a policy about, I mean, this is a specific mural in the street in the public right of way, but it seems like it's part of their description, there could be other ways that a mural could be displayed. So the question is, are we talking about, does the board want to, are we asking the board to adopt a policy to allow displays, murals be painted in the street? And again, it's a broader policy than this specific is what I'm thinking of, than this specific message. And then just, so it's kind of framing what's the policy issue we might be asking the board to address. And then this is, sort of maybe the first example of this is the type of thing that policy would cover and allow.
So you think that our recommendation would need to be around a specific policy rather than around this one-time proposal?
Right, because the question is, do we have a policy that allows the display of something in the street potentially, or, street, and maybe it's more all-encompassing. It might be broader than just the street.
Okay.
There could be some other areas in town identified because folks might come forward with wanting, an actual, hanging type of display. So.
Right, good point. Okay.
But to me, that's like stepping back. It's, this entails painting something in the street. So would it be formulating a policy around display in the street in the right of way?
Okay. And the way, obviously the way in which, sorry, thinking out loud, proposing a change or a creation of a policy about a mural being painted on public property would not typically be in the jurisdiction of a diversity inclusion committee, but it is right now because of the content of this particular proposal. So I think that that's the interesting piece, Kim, of like I don't know what business we have, like if we're gonna put a picture of Donald Duck on the street, that wouldn't come to the diversity and inclusion committee, but coming to us because of the specific content. And it's an ask. I guess I see it sort of along the lines of getting a kind of a recommendation from this committee or an endorsement of this proposal from this committee might be similar. I see it in line with a statement that the Board of Selectmen made in conjunction with the town manager's office in support of Black Lives Matter after the killing of George Floyd. So I don't know if this is kind of a call to action for us to do that. Again, we're not an activist organization or a committee. That is not the purpose, but we're acknowledging that our purpose does stand because there are systems in place that create division and inequities that we are intentionally looking to dismantle. So I don't know. It's a kind of complicated role to be in.
I guess.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Kim. I guess I don't know. I don't understand, and maybe there's a reason why it's on the street, but I think that it would be more, if they paint this mural in October and we get a few good snowstorms, you're not even going to be able to see it by January. So I guess my thought would be for a beautiful piece of artwork like this, that we maybe investigate looking for another place to put it so that it lasts long enough. Once it's down and everybody looks at it the first week, nobody's going to look at it again. They're just going to drive over it. I would rather have something that is visible to the community for a longer period of time. Yeah.
So this is where I think it might be nice to have Ala and her colleagues do a presentation to us to answer some of our questions, because they're basing their proposal on some things that Worcester did, And then I know Boston painted Black Lives Matter, not in a mural fashion, but in block letters on one of their major thoroughfares. And a lot of major cities across the country are doing that in a statement of support for the Black Lives Matter movement and an acknowledgement of the need to work towards anti-racism. So I think there might be more to having it on the street than meets the eye, you know, than we know.
And if that's the case, I'd like to understand it better, because I just, you know, I mean, it's one thing to put like the block letters like they did in Boston and New York, but to do a mural like this is beautiful artwork, very creative and very expressive. And I'd rather see it someplace where we can look at it for longer than a couple months and enjoy it, or understand it, or think about it, or ponder it, you know?
Yeah.
But the policy matter would incorporate things, you know, there are to Alma's point, it got me thinking, you do have some safety concerns potentially, and those types of things can be addressed in a policy, because there might need to be review of where things are placed. If you have what is, in my mind, I'm looking at the picture, it is artwork in our busy downtown. There may be some legitimate safety concerns. We already have, you know, issues with traffic. And I think just a policy gives a framework for evaluating proposals as they come through, and having sort of a set of standards by which they're evaluated, or criteria that they might have to meet. I mean, they're pretty thorough in their proposal about the type of paint that they use, because obviously you don't want to create unsafe conditions because it's slippery. I mean, theirs is thorough, but a policy provides a framework for some of that, as well as, you know, if you take an individual proposal and approve it, what happens the next time somebody comes before the board and we don't like the message? And it's, you know, so how do you have a framework for approving or denying and having some consistency? And that's where I went to, maybe what we're actually recommending is a policy to identify an area and criteria for evaluating things to be displayed in this manner.
So who needs to be involved in this conversation besides us, if anybody, do we think? In talking to Kim, just on the side about logistics, not deliberations, but just logistics, we're thinking like maybe the Department of Public Works.
Yeah, I would think at a minimum, it would be the Department of Public Works and the police.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe it's also a matter of looking at what policies are already in place, maybe about similar things, like posting on like hanging a banner. You know, I think we have some criteria around that, right? Of hanging a banner in front of town hall, or putting stuff on the electronic billboards, some of those other public things that we communicate private information on sometimes. And what are the criteria for that? Is that a place that we could start as sort of a baseline for looking at this issue, Kim?
Yeah, potentially, because I think when you look at those that they've developed, for instance, take a good example, the Rotary, the Veterans Organization wanted to place flags on the Rotary. I believe it was around Memorial Day. Right. And in that discussion, the specific placement of them was identified so that their people weren't having to be out on the fringe if they were walking around the Rotary. My point is, there were some safety concerns, and similar to, you know, murals in the street. There may be places where there's greater concern that if traffic, you know, it's more congested, there may be greater risk that if vehicles are stopping as they're driving over it, or people are slowing down, it's just, there's safety risks and things that we wouldn't think about. So I think maybe public safety input from that standpoint, you know, potentially DPW about, you know, unfortunately we are New England, we know what happens to our roadways over the winter. And then it does, you know, again, I'm looking at the picture, it looks beautiful now when it's all bright, but after 3 or 4 months, it could become an eyesore if it's been salted and sanded. So you kind of don't want that either. So I think there's some considerations that some other folks like DPW, public safety, might help us think through. And it doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means that there's some considerations when things get approved. Maybe, maybe it's seasonal. Maybe, you want to have these things go down on the pavement before, summer, and then, you figure you've got them for the summer and the early fall, and then they're done by winter type of thing.
What if we do this? What if I and or Kim invite public safety and DPW to come to a meeting? We have Alla come, well, that we send this proposal to them. So they have advance notice of it. They can kind of think of their questions, come up with their questions, and either we invite them or we bring their questions to a meeting and have Alla come and do a Q&A with us.
Yeah, I think that, to me, that's a good approach. We can share this with them and just ask what, and they may not need to actually be present at the meeting if we can relay their thoughts.
Okay.
And I don't object to hearing her presentation. I just want to be careful that she understands that we're not the entity yet to say yay or nay, or
Right. She does understand that because I've clarified that with her, but she saw us as maybe a inroads to figuring out who the powers that be would be. So I think that she'll be receptive to that response. She also has proposed engaging the Cultural Council, and they just had a change in leadership. Ryan, are you still on the Cultural Council, or is that you done with that too?
Yes, I'm actually being reappointed for one more year.
You are?
Yes, this will be my 3rd year on the Westborough Culture Council.
Well, might I ask you then, if you're willing, to share this proposal with the Cultural Council as well, and see if they've been in contact with Alla, or because I know Alla was trying to find them, but I know you had a change in the chairperson and stuff of that. So I don't know if they ever made contact, but again, that would be the Cultural Council. I would like to either share with them the proposal, have them give us through you or otherwise their questions, or invite them to sit through a short presentation and do a Q&A.
Yes, absolutely. I'll email Bonnie Hastings about that.
Thank you. So convenient. All right. I think we did it. Any other thoughts or questions about the Black Lives Matter mural? Dan?
I had one thought when I was reading the proposal. When I first read it, I was like, oh, that's so awesome. That'd be so great to have that in town. But one thing, I don't want to project on anyone else's opinion for this, but one thing I didn't see in the proposal that I would love to ask is, what is the plan for the response to it? I've seen when the one went down in Worcester, there was vandalism. There was a lot, or online especially, hatred towards it going in. And I think just that doesn't mean that shouldn't be done. I just think we need to think about that as it's something we, even in our capacity, we like or don't like. I know personally, every year when it comes to Pride, I get very anxious because that's when I see the most homophobia online. We did a display at the library, the Children's Library did this display the last year on Pride books for families, and we received some really negative pushback. And emotionally on me, that took a toll, just knowing, wow, it is really right here. And I think a similar thing would happen with a mural like this. And so it's like, what is the response? What is the plan after it's been put down? Because that's kind of where the proposal ended, was the put down and the take down a year later. But what is the thought process behind like dealing with it being there? And I think that's just something important to address.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up as a factor. I'm going to reach out to Alla. I'm going to share with her our feedback just about the questions we know we have, which is about, the timing of it, and what if it gets, washed away with the sand and the salt and the snow. Is there a reason for the street versus some other public place of display? 3, what is, just how are you thinking about the public safety concerns of what with like logistics of public safety, like right. People stopping to view it in the middle of traffic, right? And then to your point, Dan, of sort of the community public response, and what are their thoughts about that? So I'll propose those. I'll let her know that we're going to forward this to the Cultural Council, Public Safety, which would be police and fire, and the DPW. And then I'll invite her to do a Q&A with us at our next meeting. All right, good. Ooh, we got a plan. I like it. All right, so let's talk about our next meeting. We have been doing the last 3 meetings have, or 4, I don't know. Anyway, the last few meetings have been the 3rd Thursday at 3. I think eventually I would love to get back to our Tuesday at 5 meeting, because I think that will be accessible to a lot of people. But town employees work late on Tuesdays, and community members who have 9-to-5 jobs may be able to access. However, we can't do that quite yet, because Tuesday evenings, the Board of Selectmen meets frequently, and they start their meetings at 5 o'clock. So we don't want to have a conflict there. So my proposal is that for the moment, we stick to a Thursday at 3. I don't know if this third Thursday at 3 is the best fit for us. I mean, that's my proposal, is to make like 1 or 2 more meetings on a Thursday, the 3rd Thursday at 3, unless you give me reason to do something different, which I'm open to.
The 3rd, it works for me. Does anybody else feel, I think as we get into the fall, I know, would anybody object? Could we schedule out maybe, well, we'd have September, could we schedule through the fall? September, October, November, December? I just know things tend to get a little bit busier, at least in my realm, as we get later into the fall.
I'll do that. I'll put out meeting dates and post them for September, October. What's that, Alma?
It would be September 17th, the 3rd Thursday, October 15th, November 19th, and December 17th.
Okay, so let's make those the dates. I'll post them. If as we approach those dates, we see a conflict, we can adjust accordingly. But that sounds like a good plan.
Or we can dare hope that we might be post-COVID.
Dare hope. Hey, we gotta have hope. Hope keeps us going.
Get back to meeting in person.
I know. Well, thank you for your time. We did great work today. I don't know about you, but I feel like the momentum and even personally, I feel a little excitement. So it's kind of nice.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
Oh yes, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kim, a second?
Sarah?
Did you second, Alma?
Nope, I just writing name.
A second?
Second.
Shazia seconds. All right, do a roll call vote. Sarah?
Connors, yes.
Presley, yes. Kim?
Foster, yes.
Dan?
Barber, yes.
Alma?
Yes.
Ryan?
When yes.
Shazia?
Majid, yes.
Excellent. And that is it. We are
And
adjourned.
thank you to Westborough TV.
Yes, thank you, Aiden and Westborough TV. We really appreciate what you do. All right. We'll see y'all in a month.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.